The mining station Keeler. 9 drifted silently at the edge of dead space. Its outer hull cracked open like a wounded animal. Emergency lights pulsed through smoke-filled corridors, while freezing air escaped into the endless void. Deep inside the failing station, Commander Lyra Venn forced herself forward to the darkness, one hand pressed against the bleeding wound beneath her armor. Behind reinforced blast doors, the last survivors of her species slept inside emergency stasis chambers. Scientists, civilians, children, all placed into cryosleep after the attack began. Only Lyra had remained awake. The enemy fleet had arrived without warning 3 weeks earlier. The Karn Dominion, a species feared across dozens of systems for one reason above all others. They never left witnesses. Lyra reached the command deck and collapsed into the captain's chair. Every screen around her flickered with critical alerts. Power failure. Life support critical. Reactor instability detected. The station computer spoke in a damaged monotone. Remaining operational capacity, 11%. Lyra closed her silver eyes. 11%. That was all that remained between her people and extinction. Outside the cracked viewport, the stars looked cold and distant. Somewhere beyond them, Karn patrol ships were still searching the sector, making certain no survivors escaped. Because of what Keeler 9 had discovered, Lyra's hand tightened against the console. The ancient structure hidden beneath the asteroid belt was unlike anything her people had ever encountered. A relic older than recorded civilization. A machine capable of manipulating faster-than-light corridors themselves. If the Karn obtained it, no species in the galaxy would ever resist them again. That was why the station had been destroyed, and why everyone aboard was now condemned to die quietly in the dark. Long-range communication status? Lyra asked weakly. Destroyed. Emergency beacon? Quantum relay functional. Single-use transmission available. Lyra stared at the blinking symbol on her console. A distress beacon. Pointless. This region of space was beyond mapped territory. No Allied fleet traveled near these systems. No rescue vessel would ever reach them in time. Still, her gaze drifted toward the sleeping stasis chambers shown on the nearby monitor. 23 lives, depending on her. Slowly, painfully, Lyra activated the emergency transmission controls. The computer issued an immediate warning. Quantum beacon activation will consume 34% of remaining power reserves. She hesitated only briefly. Do it. The station lights dimmed as energy diverted into the relay core. Throughout the dying station, systems powered down one after another. Heating, research databases, artificial gravity, all sacrificed for one final message. Lyra activated the recorder. Her exhausted reflection appeared on the cracked display screen. This is Commander Lyra Venn of Research Station Keeler 9. To anyone receiving this transmission, we are under attack by Karn Dominion forces. Our station is critically damaged. Survivors remain in emergency stasis. She paused, breathing hard. We request immediate evacuation assistance. For a moment, she almost mentioned the ancient machine hidden beneath the asteroid field. But she stopped herself. Some knowledge was too dangerous. Instead, she finished quietly. If help cannot arrive, then let this message stand as proof that we try to protect something greater than ourselves. She ended the recording. The beacon activated. A pulse of quantum energy vanished into deep space, carrying her desperate signal across thousands of light years. Then silence returned. Cold, endless silence. Lyra leaned back weakly as the station trembled around her. No one was coming. No one even knew they existed out here. The computer interrupted her thoughts. Warning. Reactor stability declining. She gave a tired laugh. Of course it was. For the next several days, Lyra moved through the dying station alone. She repaired failing systems, rationed oxygen, sealed hull fractures with dwindling supplies. Every hour the station became colder, darker, quieter, and every 4 hours, the distress beacon repeated its call into the void. No response ever came. Eventually, even Lyra understood the truth. Hope was gone. The station no longer had enough power to sustain both her and the stasis chambers. There was only one option left. She entered the cryostasis chamber room slowly, staring at the sleeping survivors inside their frozen pods. Families, researchers, friends, people who had trusted her. The final empty pod waited at the far end of the chamber. The computer spoke softly. Warning, with no conscious crew remaining, station survival probability falls below 2%. Lyra placed a trembling hand against the cold glass of the nearest chamber. 2% is still more than zero. She recorded one final log. If anyone finds this station, protect my people. The Karn cannot be allowed to claim what lies beneath the system. Outside the station, distant stars shimmered across the darkness. Beautiful, indifferent, Lyra stepped into the cryopod. As freezing vapor surrounded her body, she looked one final time toward the endless void beyond the viewport. Somewhere out there, her signal continued traveling through space. A final whisper in the dark. Then the cryopod closed, and Commander Lyra Van vanished into frozen silence. Unknown to her, at the very edge of human-controlled territory, aboard the Earth cruiser ESS Vanguard, a communications officer suddenly frowned at his console. "Captain," he said slowly, "you might want to see this." A strange signal pulsed across the display. Not human, not registered, and impossibly far away. The bridge of the Earth cruiser ESS Vanguard buzzed a controlled activity as officers moved between glowing stations beneath the soft blue light of holographic displays. Outside the massive forward viewport, stars stretched into silver lines as the ship cut through faster-than-light travel. Lieutenant Ethan Cole leaned closer to his communications console, replaying the strange transmission again. The signal crackled with heavy distortion, but one thing was immediately clear. It was a distress call, and it definitely wasn't human. Running translation analysis now, Ethan said. Captain Marcus Hale stepped down from the command platform, his sharp eyes fixed on the waveform dancing across the screen. How far out? Ethan swallowed. Approximately 9,000 light-years beyond map patrol routes. Several officers exchanged uneasy looks. That distance was insane. No civilian ship traveled that far voluntarily. First Officer Naomi Reyes folded her arms beside the captain. Could be bait. No known species uses quantum pulse encoding like this, Ethan added carefully. It almost looks experimental. Captain Hale remained silent as he listened to the broken voice hidden beneath the static. Desperation, exhaustion, fear. Whoever sent this message believed they were about to die. The bridge waited for his decision. Finally, Naomi spoke again. Earth Command will never approve a mission this far outside territory. Captain Hale looked toward the stars ahead. Did the signal ask for military assistance? No, sir. Did it threaten us? No. Then someone out there is dying alone. The bridge fell silent. Everyone aboard knew what that meant. Marcus Hale had commanded rescue operations during pirate wars, colony collapses, and first contact disasters. He had disobeyed direct orders before to evacuate civilians trapped in combat zones. And every crew member aboard the Vanguard already knew the decision he was about to make. "Change course," Hale ordered calmly. Naomi exhaled softly. "Captain, we don't ignore distress calls." "Yes, sir." The massive cruiser slowly turned toward deep space, toward the unknown, toward a region no human vessel had ever entered before. As navigation systems recalculated the route, Ethan replayed the alien message again. This time the distorted voice sounded almost haunting. "If help cannot arrive." The transmission ended in static. For some reason, Ethan couldn't stop thinking about it. The journey lasted 16 days. During that time, the Vanguard prepared for every possible scenario. Pirates, hostile aliens, biological contamination, ambush. The ship's marine squads trained constantly while science teams worked to decode the strange alien language hidden inside the signal. Captain Hale spent most evenings on the bridge watching the stars pass beyond the viewport. Something about the transmission bothered him. It wasn't military. It wasn't manipulative. It sounded hopeless, and hopeless people rarely set traps. Dropping from faster-than-light travel in 30 seconds, Naomi announced. The bridge immediately shifted into combat readiness. Long-range scans active. Shield standing by. Marine teams prepared. The countdown reached 0. The streaking stars vanished. Normal space returned instantly, and every officer on the bridge went quiet. Ahead of them drifted a shattered station wrapped in darkness. Massive sections of the outer hull had been destroyed. Entire decks were exposed to space. Emergency lights flickered weakly across broken metal structures. The station looked dead. Ethan stared at his readings. That's the source of the signal. Life signs. Hale asked immediately. A pause. Then Ethan looked up slowly. 24. The bridge snapped to attention. Repeat that. I'm reading 24 biological signatures aboard the station. 23 are barely active. One appears to be in deep cryogenic suspension. Survivors. After all this time, survivors still existed. Naomi immediately moved toward tactical displays. No other ships in the sector detected. Signs of battle? Hale asked. Commander Daniel Briggs, head of tactical operations, answered grimly. Extensive weapons damage. Whoever attacked them used heavy plasma weaponry. The captain's jaw tightened. Someone had massacred this station and left the survivors to die slowly in deep space. Prepare rescue teams. Hale ordered instantly. Medical personnel, engineers, Marines, full environmental gear. Yes, sir. The bridge exploded into movement. Inside the launch bay, armored rescue crews boarded transport shuttles while medical teams loaded emergency life support equipment. Chief Medical Officer Dr. Elena Ward secured her equipment case before glancing toward Captain Hale. You really think they're still alive after all this time? Hale looked toward the broken station visible through the bay doors. Only one way to find out. Moments later, the shuttle launched. As it crossed the darkness toward the damaged alien station, the scale of destruction became horrifyingly clear. Entire sections had been burned apart. Emergency bulkheads barely held the structure together. Frozen debris floated silently around the station like graves. Jesus, one Marine whispered. The shuttle carefully connected to a surviving airlock. Warning alarms echoed faintly from inside the station. The rescue team stepped through the entrance slowly. Helmet lights cutting across freezing corridors filled with smoke and drifting frost. The architecture immediately felt alien. Tall, narrow hallways. Strange symbols across the walls. Machines unlike anything humanity had ever built. But one thing felt universally familiar. This place had suffered. Dr. Ward checked her scanner. Life signs below us. The team moved deeper into the station, past shattered laboratories, collapsed corridors, burned defensive positions. Signs of desperation were everywhere. Whoever these people were, they had fought hard to survive. Finally, the rescue team reached a massive chamber filled with cryostasis pods. Rows and rows of frozen alien figures slept beneath layers of frost. Blue skin, thin bodies, silver markings across their arms. And at the far end of the chamber, one pod remained partially active. A woman rested inside. Unlike the others, her cryostasis system showed recent usage. Captain Hale stepped closer to the glass. Even unconscious, exhaustion was visible on her face. She stayed awake longer than the rest. Dr. Ward said quietly, she kept them alive. For a moment, nobody spoke. The silence inside the frozen chamber felt heavy. Humanity had just crossed thousands of light years, chasing a dying signal from the darkness. And somehow, they had arrived in time. Frost slowly melted across the surface of the cryostasis pod as emergency power from the ESS Vanguard flowed into the dying station. Inside the chamber, warning lights shifted from red to amber. Dr. Elena Ward studied the alien controls carefully, while engineers connected portable power units to stabilize the system. Cryogenic functions are collapsing, she said. If we don't wake her now, the pod will fail completely. Captain Marcus Hale nodded once. Do it. The chamber fell silent, except for the low mechanical hum of the pod unlocking. A sharp hiss escaped into the cold air. Then the glass canopy slowly lifted. The alien woman gasped violently as freezing vapor poured around her body. Silver eyes snapped open in panic, while she struggled to breathe. Immediately, Marine rifles lowered slightly. Not threatening. Careful. The woman looked around wildly at the armored figures surrounding her. Fear flashed across her face as she pushed herself backward inside the pod. She had expected death. Instead, she woke to strangers. Tall strangers. Broad-shouldered. Unknown. One of the Marines slowly removed his helmet. A human face stared back at her. Warm eyes. Calm expression. No aggression. Captain Hale stepped forward carefully, keeping his hands visible. "We're not here to hurt you." The alien froze. She didn't understand the words. Dr. Ward activated the portable translator device clipped to her suit. The machine processed both languages rapidly, searching for patterns from the distress signal logs. Static crackled. Broken sounds echoed awkwardly. Then finally, the translation stabilized. "We help," the machine said clumsily. The woman stared in disbelief. "You received a signal?" Her voice sounded fragile from weeks of isolation. Captain Hale nodded gently. "Yes." For several seconds, she simply looked at them, unable to process what she was seeing. Someone had come. Not scavengers. Not soldiers. Not the Karn. Someone had actually answered. Her breathing became uneven. "You crossed deep space for strangers?" Hale exchanged a glance with Dr. Ward, confused by the question itself. "Of course we did," he answered simply. The translator repeated the words. The alien's silver eyes widened slightly, as though the answer made no sense. "My people," she said suddenly, looking toward the frozen cryopods around her. "Are they alive?" Dr. Ward stepped beside the nearest chamber scanner. "Barely. But yes." Visible relief flooded across the alien woman's face. So suddenly, it almost looked painful. Weeks of fear, isolation, hopelessness, and now, impossibly, hope. "My name is Lyra Venn," she said quietly. "Captain Marcus Hale," he replied. "Earth Cruiser Vanguard." Earth. The word sounded unfamiliar on her tongue. Another Marine carefully lowered his weapon entirely. "We need to move your people," Dr. Ward explained. "This station is failing." Lyra looked around the chamber slowly, as though finally remembering where she was. The walls trembled faintly. Emergency lights flickered weaker than before. The station was dying. "Yes," she whispered. "The reactor won't survive much longer." Captain Hale activated his comm unit. "Begin full evacuation immediately." Outside the chamber, human rescue teams flooded through the damaged station with controlled urgency. Portable life support systems were deployed, while engineers stabilized collapsing corridors. The humans moved quickly, efficiently, without panic. Lyra watched them in stunned silence. No shouting, no confusion, no selfishness. Every person seemed to know exactly what to do. One human Marine paused beside a damaged wall, where alien symbols had been burned black by explosions. "What happened here?" he asked quietly. Lyra hesitated. "The Karn Dominion attacked us." Captain Hale's expression hardened slightly. "Why?" Her eyes drifted downward. "We found something they wanted." The captain noticed immediately that she avoided specifics. But he didn't press. Not yet. Trust mattered during first contact. As rescue teams carefully transferred frozen survivors toward the transport shuttles, Lyra followed Captain Hale through the ruined corridors of Keeler 9. The station looked even worse now that she saw it through fresh eyes. Dead hallways, burned laboratories, abandoned equipment, ghosts of civilization's final moments. "You stayed awake alone this whole time?" Hale asked. "Yes, for weeks." Lyra nodded weakly. There was nobody else. The captain studied her for a moment. Most species he'd encountered during early exploration missions broke under isolation far faster than that. But somehow she endured, not because she believed rescue would come, but because others depended on her. That told him everything he needed to know about her character. As they entered the docking corridor, Lyra stopped walking. Through the massive airlock window, she finally saw the ESS Vanguard clearly for the first time. Her breath caught instantly. The Earth cruiser dwarfed the ruined station outside. Dark steel armor, massive engine arrays, rows of glowing weapon systems. It looked less like a ship and more like a moving fortress. "You came here in that?" One of the nearby human engineers smiled proudly. "She's not the biggest ship Earth has either." Lyra stared silently at the cruiser. Her people had spent centuries building exploration vessels and scientific stations, not warships. Nothing in Illyrian space looked remotely like this. Captain Hale noticed the fear returning to her expression. "Our weapons are defensive," he said calmly. "We protect colonies and civilian routes." Lyra looked at him carefully. "You build a vessel like this for protection?" Hale gave a small shrug. "Space is dangerous." The simplicity of the answer unsettled her even more. To her people, strength usually existed to dominate. But these humans spoke about overwhelming military power as if it were simply responsibility. As the last cryostasis chamber loaded into the transport shuttle, warning alarms suddenly echoed through the station. A violent tremor shook the corridor. "Reactor containment failure," a human engineer shouted. Captain Hale instantly turned toward the airlock. "Move. Everybody out now." The rescue teams reacted immediately, without hesitation. No panic, no confusion, only disciplined movement. Lyra stumbled as another explosion rocked the station beneath them. Before she could fall, a human marine caught her arm and pulled her upright. "Easy," he said firmly. The translator converted the word. Easy. Such a strange thing to say in the middle of disaster. The final shuttle launched from Keeler. 9 moments before fire erupted across the station's lower levels. From inside the transport craft, Lyra watched the shattered research station drift farther away into darkness. The place she had called home was dying behind her, and yet, for the first time in weeks, she no longer felt alone. As the shuttle approached the Vanguard's massive hangar bay, Lyra quietly looked toward Captain Hale. "Why?" she asked again softly. The captain looked over. "Why what?" "Why risk your people for mine?" For several seconds, he seemed genuinely confused by the question. Then he answered simply, "Because someone needed help." Nothing more. No speech. No demand. No condition. Just that. Lyra Venn stared at the humans surrounding her. And for the first time since the attack began, the galaxy no longer felt cold. The evacuation had barely finished when alarms erupted across the bridge of the ESS Vanguard. Red warning lights flooded the command deck. Tactical alert. Commander Briggs announced sharply. 3 unidentified vessels just entered the system. Captain Marcus Hale immediately stepped onto the command platform. "Display them." The forward viewport shifted instantly. 3 massive warships emerged from faster-than-light travel, like predators entering dark water. Angular black hulls. Heavy plasma cannons. Cruel-looking armored frames. The moment Lyra Venn saw them, the color drained from her face. The Karn. The bridge fell silent. Even before scans completed, the enemy ships radiated menace. Commander Briggs studied incoming data rapidly. Heavily armed. Weapon systems already charging. First Officer Naomi Reyes glanced toward Hale. They tracked the station. "No," Lyra whispered quietly. They came back to make sure nobody survived. As if hearing her words, the center Karn warship transmitted a signal directly toward the Vanguard. "Audio only," Briggs warned. "Put them through." Static crackled briefly. Then a deep, distorted voice filled the bridge. "Unknown vessel. You are in possession of Dominion property." The translator automatically converted the alien language. On the main display appeared a tall, gray-skinned figure with glowing yellow eyes and ceremonial black armor. The Karn commander. Cold, expressionless, certain of victory. "I am War Commander Threx," the alien announced. "Return the surviving Illyrians immediately, and your vessel may leave intact." Captain Hale stood calmly with his hands behind his back. "No." Several bridge officers exchanged glances. The Karn commander blinked slowly. "Explain." Hale's voice remained level. "The survivors aboard this ship are under Earth protection." The alien stared at him in visible confusion. "You crossed unclaimed space to defend a species you do not know." "Yes." "This action is irrational." Captain Hale smiled faintly. "We hear that a lot." The bridge crew fought back small grins. The Karn commander did not. Instead, his expression darkened. The Illyrians violated Dominion territory and uncovered restricted assets. Lyra stiffened instantly. Hale noticed. "Interesting. There are no survivors, Threx continued coldly. Only witnesses. For the first time, anger flickered visibly across the human bridge crew. Witnesses, not people, not civilians, just inconvenient evidence to erase. Captain Hale's eyes hardened slightly. You attacked a civilian research station. Yes. The answer came without shame. Stand down, Threx ordered, or share their fate. Silence settled across the bridge. Then Hale spoke quietly. No. The Karn commander tilted his head slowly. You would choose war for strangers? Captain Hale stepped closer to the display screen. We don't abandon people. For the first time, the Karn commander seemed uncertain, as though the statement itself made no sense. Finally his yellow eyes narrowed. Then your species is weak. The transmission ended instantly. Warning sirens blared throughout the vanguard. Commander Briggs looked up sharply. Enemy weapons charging. Captain Hale didn't hesitate. Battle stations. The entire ship transformed instantly. Steel blast doors sealed sections of the cruiser. Weapon systems activated. Engine output surged. Human officers moved with frightening speed. Not chaotic. Focused. Purposeful. Lyra stood frozen near the rear command station as the humans prepared for battle around her. Nobody panicked. Nobody argued. Nobody begged to retreat. They simply prepared. Naomi Reyes moved beside the captain. We're outgunned. Probably. They have superior firepower. Maybe. Naomi smirked slightly. But Captain Hale's eyes remained locked on the approaching enemy fleet. They think battles are won by strength alone. Outside the viewport, the 3 Karn warships advanced in rigid triangular formation, perfectly organized, perfectly predictable. Commander Briggs frowned at tactical scans. That formation leaves almost no opening. Lyra suddenly spoke. They always attack that way. The bridge turned toward her. The Karn consider formation discipline sacred. She explained quickly. Their commanders never adapt once combat begins. Changing strategy is considered dishonorable. For the first time since the enemy arrived, Captain Hale smiled. A dangerous smile. That, he said softly, is very useful information. Naomi immediately understood. Oh no, Commander Briggs grinned. You're going to do it again, aren't you? Absolutely. Lyra looked between them in confusion. Do what? Captain Hale turned toward the bridge crew. Prepare maneuver pattern, Raven. Several officers immediately exchanged excited looks. One Marine officer muttered, "The crazy one?" Hale ignored him. Divert additional power to lateral thrusters. Target propulsion systems only. Lyra frowned. You're targeting engines? We don't need to destroy them. Hale replied calmly. We just need them confused. The enemy fleet closed rapidly, weapons charging brighter by the second. Lyra's pulse quickened. 20 years earlier, the Karn Dominion had annihilated an entire defense fleet twice the size, and yet the humans standing around her looked almost relaxed. That terrified her more than the enemy ships. Commander Briggs counted down slowly. Enemy entering firing range in 10. Outside, plasma cannons began glowing across the Karn hulls. 9. Human weapon systems locked targets. 8. The Vanguard's engines shifted tone. 7. Lyra gripped the command rail tightly. 6. Captain Hale remained perfectly still. 5. The Karn formation stabilized for attack. 4. Every instinct Lyra possessed screamed that they should retreat. 3. Instead, the human captain smiled. 2. Commander Briggs looked up. They're committing. Good, Hale said. 1. The enemy fleet opened fire, and instead of retreating, the ESS Vanguard accelerated directly toward them. Lyra's eyes widened in horror. What are you doing? The cruiser twisted violently between streams of plasma fire, accelerating at impossible angles. Human officers moved rapidly through coordinated chaos. Roll left. Port shields holding. Thrusters responding. The Vanguard dove straight between the enemy warships before the Karn could react. The rigid formation instantly collapsed in confusion. They're hesitating. Briggs shouted. Exactly, Hale replied. The Karn ships couldn't fire freely without risking each other. Their own discipline trapped them. Now, Hale ordered calmly. The Vanguard unleashed everything. Precision railgun strikes slammed into the lead Karn cruiser's engine systems. Explosions erupted across its rear hull. The enemy formation broke apart immediately, and for the first time in recorded history, the Karn Dominion encountered an enemy that refused to fight the way the galaxy expected. The battle exploded across deep space in flashes of blue plasma and burning metal. The ESS Vanguard moved like something alive, not rigid, not predictable, free. That single difference shattered everything the Karn Dominion believed about warfare. Enemy formation collapsing. Commander Briggs shouted from tactical control. On the main viewport, the 3 Karn warships struggled to reposition after the human cruiser sliced directly through their attack pattern. Captain Marcus Hale remained calm, almost impossibly calm. "Keep moving," he ordered. "Never give them the same angle twice." "Aye, Captain." The Vanguard rolled violently beneath incoming plasma fire, while lateral thrusters hurled the cruiser sideways through empty space. Lyra Venn nearly lost balance as inertial dampeners strained against the maneuvers. "No ship that size should move like this," she whispered. Beside her, Naomi Reyes smirked slightly. "Humans cheat." The Karn warships opened fire again. Massive plasma beams crossed the darkness. But the Vanguard was already somewhere else. Commander Briggs locked onto the nearest enemy vessel. "They're trying to reestablish formation. Don't let them." The human cruiser accelerated directly toward the gap between the enemy ships once more. Every tactical instinct Lyra possessed screamed this was suicide. The humans treated it like choreography. Railguns ready. Fire. The Vanguard's weapons thundered. Magnetic rounds smashed into the nearest Karn destroyer's weapon arrays with terrifying precision. Explosions erupted across the enemy hull. For the first time since the battle began, the Karn fired wildly. Emotionally, they were losing control, and that terrified them. "Their targeting efficiency is dropping," Briggs reported. Captain Hale nodded. "They're angry now." On screen, the Karn commander reappeared briefly through an emergency transmission. His cold composure was gone. "You fight without honor." Captain Hale barely glanced toward the screen. "No," he replied calmly. "We fight to win." The transmission cut instantly. Lyra stared at the human captain. To the Illyrians, combat had always been tragic, avoided, feared, but the humans approached danger differently, not because they enjoyed violence, but because they refused to surrender to it. That distinction changed everything. Another alarm echoed through the bridge. Enemy cruiser powering heavy cannons. Briggs looked up sharply. That shock could cripple us. The Karn flagship rotated slowly, massive plasma batteries charging brighter than before. Naomi's voice tightened. "They've stopped trying to outmaneuver us." Captain Hale's eyes narrowed slightly, because now they're desperate. Outside the viewport, energy gathered across the enemy hull like a miniature star. Lyra felt fear tighten in her chest. If that weapon fired... "Lieutenant Carter," Hale interrupted calmly, "how close can you get us?" The navigation officer blinked. "Close to what?" "The flagship." Silence. Then Naomi slowly realized what he intended. "Oh, you are insane." Captain Hale smiled faintly. "Probably." The bridge crew immediately moved into action anyway. No hesitation. No questioning. Because they trusted him. Full forward burn. The Vanguard surged ahead. Straight toward the charging Karn flagship. Lyra's eyes widened. "They're going to fire." "Exactly," Hale said. At the last possible second, the human cruiser rotated sharply beneath the enemy ship's weapon line. The massive plasma blast fired harmlessly into empty space above them. At point-blank range, the Vanguard unleashed a concentrated missile volley directly into flagship's exposed engine core. The explosion lit the darkness like a second sun. The Karn flagship spiraled violently sideways, engines collapsing into fire. Shock rippled across the remaining enemy ships. The impossible had happened. A single human cruiser had dismantled a Dominion battle group. not through superior firepower, through adaptation, creativity, independent thinking. The surviving Karn destroyers immediately began retreat maneuvers. They're withdrawing, Briggs announced. Cheers erupted briefly across the bridge, but Captain Hale remained focused. Hold fire. Several officers looked surprised. We're letting them leave? One Marine asked. They've already lost. The human captain watched the burning flagship drift helplessly through space. We're not executioners. Lyra stared at him in disbelief. The Karn would have exterminated every survivor without hesitation. But the humans, even after being threatened, even during war, still chose restraint. The surviving enemy vessels jumped into faster-than-light travel moments later, vanishing into darkness. Silence returned to the bridge. Slowly, the adrenaline faded. Then the reality of what happened settled across the crew. They survived, against impossible odds. Commander Briggs leaned back heavily in his chair. Well, he muttered, that's definitely going to become paperwork. Laughter spread across the bridge. Actual laughter. Lyra couldn't understand it. They had just fought for their lives against one of the most feared military powers in known space. And the humans were joking. Captain Hale finally turned toward her. You all right? For several seconds, she couldn't answer. Her silver eyes drifted across the bridge crew around her. Humans checking on each other, sharing exhausted smiles, helping wounded officers. No arrogance. No celebration of violence. Only relief that everyone survived. You fought for people you had never met, Lyra said quietly. Yes. You risked your ship, your crew, your lives. Captain Hale shrugged slightly. That's part of the job. The simplicity of the answer shook her more than the battle itself. Her people spent centuries believing strength created tyranny. That power inevitably corrupted. But the humans standing around her shattered that belief completely. They were powerful, terrifyingly powerful, yet everything they did revolved around protecting others. That contradiction felt almost impossible. A notification suddenly appeared across the tactical display. Commander Briggs frowned. Captain, long-range scans just picked up multiple transmissions. From a Karn? No, sir. He looked up slowly. It's civilian traffic. The bridge turned toward him. Word of the battle is spreading. Lyra felt her heartbeat quicken. Across nearby systems, scatter vessels had apparently detected fragments of the conflict, and for the first time in generations, they had witnessed Karn warships retreat. Commander Briggs activated incoming transmission logs. Distorted voices echoed across the bridge. Did humans really defend civilians? The Karn lost. Unknown species resisted Dominion forces. Is it true? Captain Hale looked toward the stars beyond the viewport. Humanity had only entered galactic space a few decades ago, and already the galaxy was beginning to notice them, not because humans conquered worlds, not because they demanded fear, but because they answered a distress call nobody else would answer. Lyra Venn slowly looked at the human crew around her, and deep inside, for the first time in her life, hope began to feel stronger than fear. 6 months later, the stars above her station Orion glowed brighter than anything Lyra Venn had ever seen. Thousands of ships moved through the massive orbital structure surrounding Earth like rivers of light across darkness. Human vessels, trade carriers, exploration fleets, and now Alarian ships. Lyra stood silently beside the observation deck viewport, watching Earth rotate slowly beneath her. Blue oceans shimmer beneath swirling white clouds. Beautiful, alive. Behind her, the door slid open quietly. Admiral Marcus Hale entered wearing the dark formal uniform of Earth Fleet Command. The silver insignia on his shoulders reflected softly beneath the station lights. You're hiding from diplomats again, he said with amusement. Lyra smiled faintly. I am studying. The planet? The humans? Hale laughed softly. Still trying to figure us out? Yes. She turned back toward the viewport. Your species makes very little sense. Fair. Lyra's expression became thoughtful. When the Karn attacked us, every species near our territory ignored the distress calls. Some were afraid. Some simply didn't care enough to risk themselves. Her silver eyes drifted toward Earth below. But humans cross impossible distances for strangers. Hale leaned beside the viewport quietly. That's what people are supposed to do. Lyra looked at him carefully. No, she said softly. That is what humans decided people should do. The Admiral didn't answer immediately, because deep down, he knew she was right. The galaxy had changed rapidly after the battle near Keeler 9. News spread faster than anyone predicted. The Karn Dominion, undefeated for nearly a century, had retreated from a single Earth cruiser, not because humans possessed superior numbers, but because they fought differently, adapted differently, thought differently. Even more shocking, humans had risked everything for complete strangers. To most civilizations, that sounded insane. To oppress worlds across Karn-controlled territory, it sounded revolutionary. Suddenly, distress calls began spreading across hidden channels throughout nearby systems. Missing research crews, captured civilian ships, occupied colonies. For the first time in decades, people believed someone might actually come, and humanity answered. Again, and again, and again, the observation deck doors opened once more. Commander Naomi Reyes entered carrying a datapad. You two are needed in Assembly Hall 7. Hale sighed dramatically. Please tell me this meeting could have been an email. Nope. Lyra tilted her head slightly. What is happening? Naomi smirked. History. Assembly Hall 7 overflowed with delegates from dozens of species. Humans, Alarians, independent traders, refugee leaders, even representatives from civilizations previously too frightened to oppose the Karn Dominion openly. At the center of the chamber floated a massive holographic star map. Blue markers spread rapidly across nearby sectors. Safe routes, protected systems, rescue operations, hope. As Lyra entered beside Admiral Hale, conversations throughout the chamber quieted instantly, because everyone present knew the truth. None of this existed before one human ship answered a dying distress signal. Administrator Terov of the Alarian Confederation approached the platform first. For centuries, the elderly Alarian began, our people believed knowledge alone would preserve civilization. The holographic map shifted. Images appeared. Destroyed stations, burned colonies, missing ships. We were wrong. Silence filled the hall. Knowledge without action is helpless against tyranny. Terov turned toward the humans. But Earth reminded us of something we had forgotten. The hologram changed again. Now it showed the ESS Vanguard standing against the Karn fleet. One ship, outnumbered, refusing to abandon civilians. Courage, Terov said quietly, can be contagious. Around the chamber, delegates listened in complete silence. The Ilarian leader raised his hand toward the growing network of blue systems spreading across the galaxy map. Today, the Ilarian Confederation formally joins the Earth Alliance initiative. Applause erupted instantly. Dozens of species stood together, not united by conquest, not by fear, by trust. Lyra watched the humans carefully during the celebration. Still no arrogance. Still no demands, just determination. That fascinated her most of all. Admiral Hale eventually stepped beside the holographic map. The Karn Dominion believes fear keeps civilizations isolated, he said calmly. They survive because people believe resistance is impossible. He looked around the chamber slowly. They were wrong. The hologram shifted once more. Now dozens of distress signals appeared across nearby sectors. Flashing lights in the darkness. People waiting for help. We're not building an empire, Hale continued. We're building a response network. A human officer activated another display. Joint fleets appeared throughout Allied territories. Rescue groups, defense escorts, emergency corridors. Humanity had turned compassion into infrastructure, and that terrified the Karn more than any weapon ever could. Commander Naomi Reyes leaned toward Lyra quietly. Funny thing about helping people, Lyra glanced toward her. They usually remember it. At the far end of the chamber, emergency lights suddenly flashed across the tactical display. A new transmission appeared. Distress signal detected. Sector 14. Civilian convoy under attack. The room immediately fell silent. One of the alien delegates spoke nervously. That sector borders Dominion territory. Another added, the Karn fleet presence there is heavy. For a brief moment, old fear returned to the room. Lyra recognized it instantly. The same fear that once kept the galaxy silent. Then Admiral Hale stepped toward the display. Nearest response ships? A tactical officer answered immediately. 2 human cruisers. 1 Alarian escort group. Ite. For hours. Hale nodded once. Dispatch them. No debate. No hesitation. Just action. Around the chamber. Something shifted visibly across the faces of the delegates. Because now they understood. This alliance wasn't symbolic. Distress calls would actually be answered. Lyra felt emotion tighten unexpectedly in her chest. 7 months ago, she had frozen alone inside a dying station, believing nobody was coming. Now entire fleets moved automatically to protect strangers they had never met, all because one human captain chose compassion over caution. The galaxy would never return to what it was before. Later that evening, Lyra stood alone once more beside the observation viewport above Earth. Below her, ships launched continuously into the stars. Rescue fleets, exploration vessels, defense groups, hope moving through darkness. Her personal log recorder activated softly. This is Ambassador Lyra Venn, she began quietly. 7 months ago, I believed the universe was cold and indifferent. She watched another human cruiser vanish into faster-than-light travel. I was wrong. Her silver eyes reflected the stars beyond the glass. Humanity's greatest strength is not its weapons. Images flashed through her memory. Captain Hale refusing to abandon strangers. Human crews risking themselves without hesitation. Rescue ships answering impossible calls. It is their instinct to help. She smiled softly. And because of that, the galaxy is changing. Far beyond Earth, hidden among frightened systems and occupied worlds, new distress calls were already spreading into the darkness. This time, someone would answer, because humanity had arrived. And from this day forward, no one would face the darkness alone again.